Hello, and thank you for downloading the Horse Show podcast from With Sports. Now, if you're a regular listener, you may have heard previous episodes of this season where we've shared the stories of horsewomen who have faced serious physical challenges. And this week, my guest is Nicole Mandracchia, who, like so many riders, has had her career with horses interrupted by injuries. First, it was a hole in her patellofemoral ligament, followed by a tear of the hip labrum. And in the past few years, she's become a regular blogger for the Chronicle of the Horse, sharing her stories from the horse world and how she's had to face surgeries to repair those injuries and free her from pain. Horses have always been her passion, and she grew up riding in New Jersey, where she was a working student while in school. And she's since groomed and barn managed for Val Renihan, Rost-Brown and Amanda Steege in the hunter jumper and equitation worlds. Nicole has received 5 grooming awards at prestigious horse shows throughout the country, and she regularly follows the A-rated circuit up and down the East Coast. She says her favourite part of the job is helping horses feel their best so they can do their jobs. And I recently caught up with Nicole while she's rehabbing at home in South Carolina. Nicole, hi, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited.
Well, I know you've listened to some of the stories we've been sharing in this season of the Horse Show, and they tell the story of people getting injured and sometimes very seriously injured or in some way disabled from doing the sport that they love, and that is, of course, equestrian sport. Now, you've had your challenges, haven't you? And you're still very young. How did that all begin? Because you've been around horses a long time. How did that get interrupted?
Yeah, so I've been riding since I was 12, and I've been working in a barn since I was 14. So I've pretty much been everywhere from local to national level, pretty much every horse show you can think of up and down the East Coast. At any point in time, multiple years in a row, multiple Floridas, everything. And I don't know actually how I injured myself. It's really not even a good story. To be honest, it's really not exciting. And as soon as I tell everybody that I ride horses, the first thing that every doctor or every nurse says to me is, "Oh, did you fall off?" And I look at them and I go, well, I mean, I've fallen off, my fair share for sure, but never to a point where I felt like, okay, I really hurt myself and I'm restricted now. So I want to say it was really a compendium of injuries that probably just multiplied over time and got worse and worse and worse. And I am the world's worst person at taking care of myself. At least prior to me meeting my boyfriend 3 years ago, I did not take care of myself.
You're one of these horse people that look after the horses better than you take care of yourself.
Oh, yeah. Oh, completely. Yeah. The horses have everything. They get their massage, their chiropractic, they're fed, they're watered, they're everything. And me, I was always like, okay, I don't need to drink, water. I don't need to eat today. I've got too much to do. I can't stretch at the end of the day. I don't, need to do anything to help myself be better. I'm fine. I'll withstand, whatever comes at me. And, so I had that mentality for a really, really long time. And it basically what happened was it caught up with me. And now I've had to have 2 major surgeries within the past year and a half.
This started off with your knee. I understand that you had pain in the knee.
Yeah. So I've always had some sort of something going on in my knee since my senior year of college. I went to Centenary University in Hackettstown, New Jersey, and I was on the IHSA team there. And I was captain of the team for 2 years. And so I was regularly in the show ring, and I was working. I had a working student job at a local barn there too. And I was doing that on the weekends and working in between school and riding there and riding at school and helping organize the horse shows. And I just remember we were doing IHSA zones and zone finals. And I was walking around and I looked down at one point, like halfway through the day, and my knee was the size of a grapefruit, my right knee. And I was totally mystified because I hadn't tripped, I hadn't fallen, I hadn't done anything weird, and that my ankle hadn't given out, like nothing had happened. And my roommate, when I got home that day, I kept saying to her, like, this is really weird. I don't understand. And she's like, oh, just ice it and elevate it, and maybe you should go see a doctor. And I was like, okay. And so I iced it and I elevated it for a couple of days, and I was still riding and still, doing all the stuff in between that. So it was fine for about a week. And then I was at work in the barn, in one of the lower barns, and I was reaching up to grab a lead rope. And all of a sudden my knee gave out. My right knee gave out, and I was on the floor. And I couldn't move. I couldn't get up. I couldn't pull myself up. And I laid there for 30 to 45 minutes until someone came into the barn, because it was like 5:30, 6 o'clock-ish that night. So really everything had kind of calmed down at the barn. And my boss found me, and he was like, you are not riding anything anymore until you go to the doctor. Okay. So I went to the orthopedist, and they looked at it and they said, oh, you just have a weak knee. Your conformation's a little weird. Your hip is turned in this way. You just have a weak knee. So we're going to give you some physical therapy on it. Just go to physical therapy and do that a couple times and you'll be fine. Okay. So I did physical therapy. That helped a lot. And I went right back to horse shows. I never stopped riding in that period. I kept going to horse shows. I kind of did PT as I came home from horse shows. I'd do PT for 3 weeks, go away for 2, do PT for another 3 weeks, go away for 2. And it was fine. It started bothering me a couple of years later, again, too, maybe when I was like 24, 25. I kind of did the same thing. In Florida, one circuit, I did the same thing. My knee just let go. It wasn't quite as bad as the first time. But when I got home back to New Jersey, they told me to go back to the orthopedist, and I did. And he said, okay, we'll go back to physical therapy, because obviously your knee is weak again. There's nothing that I see on this that's, glaring, but you need to get this addressed. Okay. So I went back to physical therapy again, which again made a huge difference, really helped a lot. And I was fine for a little while. I walked with kind of a limp. If anybody's ever watched me walk, it's pretty funny, because working for Amanda Steege, we jog the hunters, or we used to jog the hunters for all of the hunter classes, the professional hunter classes. And so I would make a joke every time I went into the ring that the horse was sounder than I was. And so don't watch me run, because the horse is good. But anyway, so then I made it to last Ocala circuit in 2020. That's the last circuit that I worked before I got really injured. And I made it to week 9. And it was that Tuesday. I remember I went to get out of my car to feed the horses. It was like 7 a.m. And I went to get out of the car to feed the horses. And I stood up out of my driver's seat, and I heard this pop crack noise, and all I felt from the knee down was numbness. And I was terrified, because like I said, it's given me problems and given me pain before. And, I kind of like worked with it and took ibuprofen and, as I needed it, and ignored it basically for the most part, didn't give it a second thought. But it had never been numb before. And that scared me. And so I tried to go on with my day just like I normally would do. And I couldn't. I tried to ride. I couldn't move my leg in the stirrup. It was numb. Normally riding, it never affected my riding, which is also a reason why I continued on, because it actually felt better riding than it did walking. Walking was not good, but I could ride. And now I couldn't ride. And I had to turn to Amanda and say, listen, I'm really sorry, but I can't do this today. And she was fine with it. It ended up working out. We had another girl helping, and she rode my extras that day, so it was fine. But then our massage therapist for the horses was there, and she noticed my face and she was like, "Oh, are you okay?" Whatever. And I explained to her what happened, and she took 2 ice boots and like wrapped my entire leg in ice boots and was like, "You need to sit down and rest. And I don't know what you did, but you need to go to the doctor." So I ended up going to a hospital the next day, and they did x-rays and they found nothing. So at least it wasn't broken, but it was still exceptionally painful. They gave me a crutch and a leg brace, and they said, just keep weight off of him for 2 weeks and see what happens. And you can go to an orthopedist after that. And I was like, okay. So I rested for probably about 2 days. And then I tried to go back to work on Friday, and I made it 30 minutes. Before I looked at Amanda and I said, I can't do this. I'm sorry. And she was she was wonderful, because she looked at me and she was like, it's okay, Nicole. I know you're trying really hard. Just go rest. It's okay. And I was like, okay. So I went back to the camper and just kind of sat there and, hung out with my boyfriend and kind of elevated my leg, because that was really all I could do at that point. And then COVID happened. That day, actually. And the horse show didn't run its extra week because of COVID. So they ended up closing the horse show down, and we ended up going back to my boyfriend's house in South Carolina, because at that time, that was really the only place that a doctor's office or an orthopedist was still open and was still taking patients because of COVID. And it was the only place that would even see me, because at that point I was literally walking on my toe, like my big toe. That's how much pain I was in and how bad the walk was. I couldn't even put my foot all the way on the ground. So long story short, I waited several weeks to see him, and we got to the doctor's office and he did an MRI. And he said to me a couple of weeks later, after we did the MRI, we got the results back. He said, you need surgery. You have your MPFL ligament is hanging on by 2 threads on either side of your knee joint. And I was like, what? What are you talking? What? Excuse me? And he was like, I don't even know how you walked in here. He's like, let alone how you were riding horses. And I was like, I really don't know. So we scheduled an emergency surgery, which he was able to do, luckily at an outpatient facility, because of COVID. So I had the surgery done in Augusta, Georgia. And I was not really prepared for how limiting the surgery and recovery were going to be, like, mentally. I was ready physically for the pain to be gone, but I was not quite prepared for 8 weeks on the couch after knee surgery. And that kind of killed me. Because when you can't even lift your leg to get up out of a chair to go to the bathroom, or to get out of bed, or to walk 2 feet in front of you. I mean, for someone like me who goes and goes and goes and goes for, 16 to 20 hours a day, to not be able to do anything for yourself, I really struggled mentally with that. And my boyfriend was wonderful. He's the best caregiver ever. He and his mom were absolutely wonderful. His mom used to be an ER nurse for 20 years. So he is well-versed in, knowing how to help people recover and what they need and how to take care of a person. And he was wonderful, and he tried so hard to be so supportive, but I had so much trouble throughout that 8-week process, because I had to wait 8 weeks before I could do PT to let the ligament heal. They actually had to put donor tissue in my ligament to fill in the hole and fix what I had overstretched so terribly. So that was very hard for me. And then when we finally made it to PT, I couldn't lift my right leg for 5.5 weeks. I could not lift it at all. And my physical therapist just kept looking at me and he's like, I don't understand why you can't lift your leg. Like it should take you max 2.5 weeks. That was what he said to me on the first day, like 2.5 weeks, you'll be lifting your leg and we can go from there and we'll get super aggressive. And, you know, it'll be like maybe 5 or 6 months PT, you know, and you'll be good to go. And I was like, okay, you know, that's totally fine. And the doctor had originally told me, you know, like 3 to 6 months recovery period with the PT and, you know, the 8-week period of nothing. But I couldn't lift my leg. I started PT in June and I went through to the middle of July and I was just in awe that I couldn't do it. And it frustrated me. I used to just sit there and stare at my leg, like trying to will it to move. And I was like, how does someone like me who is so active go to this point? Like, how does this happen? And, somehow with the help of like stim and we did fascia needling, I did chiropractic, I did acupuncture, I did so many things, just like hoping and praying that something was going to make it feel better. And a combination of like all of that seemed to work. And I finally was able to move my leg, which then I graduated forward into the rest of PT. And we were able to, you know, adjust accordingly and get aggressive with it. But I was still doing PT in January. So I started in June and I was still doing PT 3 times a week in January for an hour and a half every session. And I still couldn't do normal things. I still couldn't walk up and down the stairs normally. I felt like something was stopping my right leg from functioning and bending and moving and just being free. Like I just felt like there was something wrong there that we were missing, that was somehow cut off too. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was like, there is something wrong. I don't know what it is, but there's something wrong. And I kept saying that to everybody. And a couple of my physical therapists, because I ended up having like a whole team of them, really is what happened, because they were all mystified by me. And a couple of them were just like, well, you know, this surgery that you just had is the surgery below a total knee replacement. And they were like, you know, you just might never recover. You know, there might be things that you just can't do in life. And this, like going up and down stairs might just be one of them. And I just remember looking at her and being like, what? Are you kidding me? I'm 30. Like, no, that can't be the answer. Like, it can't be. So, meanwhile, I had another one who was, determined to figure out what was wrong. Like, he had been with me from day one since I walked in the clinic, and I was like a total mystery to him. And he was fascinated by this. Like, he'd never seen anything like this before. And he wanted to be the one to figure it out. And God bless that man, because I'm telling you, if he hadn't come into my life, I still would not know what was wrong. And I would still be in pain. And I thank him for eternity for being so stubborn and being so headstrong and being so determined to figure out what was wrong with me, that he eventually in February finally looked at me and said, listen, I think you need to go to a hip doctor because I think you've torn your hip labrum. And I think it's really bad and it's stopping you from being able to use your entire leg. And I don't have health insurance, by the way, either. I did not have health insurance for the first surgery. So the fact that I even somehow managed to figure out how to pay for the first surgery and deal with COVID and not working and, you know, all of the factors in there combined was like a miracle in and of itself. And now this man was sitting in front of me telling me, oh yeah, you might have to go back to another doctor and get an MRI and you might have to have surgery. And I was like, no, that I don't know what, no, there's no way. And I hemmed and hawed over it for several days and several phone conversations with him later. And he finally convinced me that I needed to do this. And he's like, we can keep going, but if we keep going and it really is torn, we're going to hit a roadblock here, at some point, like worse than what you've already experienced in roadblock and PT wise. And I was like, if I waste another, 3 to 6 months doing this and I have to get surgery again and I waste more time, like that is just, I can't do it. So I was like, okay, fine. So I broke down. I made an appointment with the doctor in Augusta. And I went back and I had an MRI, and that process took probably about a whole month. Meanwhile, I had tried to go back to working for a local lady down here in South Carolina. So I was trying to ride and work and do barn work throughout this whole process too. And I was getting to the point in March that cannering was starting to really bother me. I couldn't sit to the canner well anymore. And I noticed that there were some horses that I was riding that their movement felt really jarring to me, which for someone like me who rides, 6 to 10 horses a day, that is not a normal feeling that I experience. Usually I feel very strong and very capable on the back of a horse. And I felt like there were things I couldn't do. And it scared me. I've never felt like that in my life on the back of a horse. And that was the first time that I really started admitting to myself that I was like, okay, I really do have a problem. Like maybe this man is really right. Like this is affecting me now. So we got the MRI results back and my orthopedist said, okay, we need to do surgery. That's the only way I'm going to be able to fix this. And, I can give you a shot to relieve the pain, but that's about all I can do. And it's only going to last a couple of days. So this is your call. It's your life. I recommend you do the surgery. And by that point, I was in so much excruciating pain on a daily basis. Nothing was helping. It would run all the way from the front of my thigh to the psoas muscles there, all the way around, wrap around to the back, my lower back, and my back felt like it was on fire. And I got no relief from anything. I was taking 4 ibuprofen 3 times a day. I was taking a tramadol once a day. I had arnica on it. I had biofreeze on it. I was icing it. I had heating pads on it. I did acupuncture. I did chiropractic. I had a Beamer set on it. I did everything that I could think of to relieve the pain, and sitting didn't help. Standing didn't help. Laying down didn't help. I had no relief. And I was so desperate by that point. I just looked at the man and I said, okay, do the surgery. I have no idea how I'm going to pay for it, but let's do the surgery because I can't live like this.
Yeah, and that moment was the pivotal moment in giving you the relief. That was the key to it all. And so you finally got some relief with that surgery. How is it now, Nicole?
So I woke up from surgery. I was kind of expecting kind of the same thing with the knee. I wasn't going to have to sit the same way. Recovery wise from the knee surgery that I did. Like I had to sit for 8 weeks with that and not do anything. This one was going to be, okay, maybe 2 weeks you sit and do nothing and let it heal. And then we can start PT. So already I was going in with a little bit of a better mindset because I was like, okay, I just have to sit for, maybe a maximum of 2 weeks, take it easy. And then I can go to PT. And I've become very driven on PT because that is, kind of the only thing I can be goal oriented on at the moment, physically anyway.
But you're able to bear weight now, are you, when you're walking? Are you able to do anything around the barn?
Oh, yes. So I woke up from surgery completely without pain.
Yeah, that was absolutely magical. That was the moment. We all need somebody who can take away the pain, and this man clearly did.
Yes.
And now, as you say, you're getting back in your stride quite literally now. So at this point in time, we are in late July. How much activity can you do? Can you ride?
So I actually just went to the doctor this morning for my 7-week checkup. And I have to wait 4 more weeks to ride, which is fine. Honestly, I'm really okay with that. It's okay. I'd rather it be totally healed and ready to go and strong in order to get back on a horse. I have been full weight bearing on that leg since day one of my surgery. I walked out basically of the clinic, and I walked back into the house pain-free. I had crutches for 2 weeks. I was on one crutch for most of those 2 weeks. I ditched the second crutch like after the first 5 days. I take ibuprofen as I need it. I can sit and be totally fine. We just started doing squats, lunges, all of that at PT, and I can walk up and down stairs without pain, and I can move my whole hip in ways that I haven't moved.
You have blogged on the Chronicle of the Horse now for the past few years. How did the blogging come about? Are you a keen writer? Do you blog without the Chronicle? Are you a journal writer?
So I actually have always loved writing too. That has always been super cathartic for me. And at that point in my life, I had started writing like a little blog. I think that was like in 2017. I think this happened. And I was writing a little blog about like my experiences in the horse world and, kind of what I had seen and heard. And I posted one, I think about grooming and how, we were lacking people in our industry that wanted to really work for the sport anymore. And it blew up. I mean, it went so farther than I ever thought it was going to go. I was just kind of writing to just write. And, it got shared by so many people. And somehow one of my old clients, either shared the post and somebody from the Chronicle saw it or something like that happened. And they reached out to me directly and they said, hey, we know you have this blog going. Is it okay if we repost what you write? Because we love what you've written here. Excuse me. It's great.
So that was the start of it. Now, why do you think people are not as keen to come into the horse world to groom? What was the message behind that blog? What did you discover?
I think this industry is really hard, and I think that a lot of people have a kind of fantasy about it when they're younger. They ride and they have somewhere they board their horse, and they don't work at the barn, they just ride, and they think that they're just going to ride ponies all day long, and that's all that it is, and they don't have to muck stalls, and they don't have to do all the other stuff that's involved in taking care of horses. And the truth is that being immersed in the horse show world is a lifestyle choice. It is. There's really no other way to put that. You have to be okay with getting up early and spending your whole day at the barn, and being okay with going out in the middle of the night and dealing with a colic and walking them around till 3 a.m., 4 a.m. You have to be okay with horses getting sick. Like, there's so many things that you have to be okay with, and it doesn't really allow you to have much of a normal life. It also, there are people in our industry who pay exceptionally well. They are wonderful employers and they do a great job. And then there are a lot more people in our industry who do not pay well. They do not keep their word. They don't pay people at all, or they shortchange people. So there's a lot of things that turn people off to our industry. But I think that people who are passionate about it and who really want to be in this business, they choose it as a lifestyle. And I was trying to convey to everyone that, if you're really serious about being in the horse world and doing horse shows and doing all of that stuff, you have to commit to being able to muck a stall when you need to. You need to know how to do that properly so that if your help quits tomorrow, you can still take care of your horses, because that's a very real possibility that could happen. And it could take you 6 months to find somebody good that you trust to do a good job.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we all know that as we get older, it gets harder on our bodies too. Now, given the injuries that you've had, how do you foresee your future now with this kind of new start, if you like, Nicole? What are you planning to do? Are you planning to get back into competing, or is it grooming and horse management that you are most passionate about? Where do you see your career going?
I'm kind of a crazy nut. Like, a lot of my friends tell me that all the time, because I have lived this lifestyle for so many years that I miss it when I don't have it. As crazy as that sounds, because some people look at me like I have 16 heads, which is fine. But I just really enjoy being around the horses and being at horse shows and being immersed in the whole thing. It's just really like, that's what lights my fire. Taking care of the horses, making sure they can do their job, seeing them win, all of that I'm so passionate about all of that. And I see myself going back to riding and, managing and doing all of that full time. But I am going to have to understand that, I just had 2 major surgeries in a year and a half, and I need to pay attention to my body, and I can't ignore myself anymore. I need to, make sure that I drink enough water and eat right, and, make sure that I ice when I overdo, and that I handle the recovery process better for myself, and I set myself up for success so that this won't happen again. Because I don't ever want to experience any of that all over again.
Now, you've already won a few grooming awards. So what would you say is the key to that? And what would your message be for anyone listening who wants to become a good groom?
I actually taught a grooming class at Centenary a couple of years ago, as I came back to teach a class, and we had a whole discussion on this topic, actually. So it was interesting that you came up with that question. I think that the biggest part of being a groom is just paying attention and knowing your horse. And that is really the best advice that I can give to anybody who is serious about getting somewhere in this industry, because those 2 things are going to get you far. The more you pay attention and the more you notice things, good or bad, the more people will realize that, hey, this girl kind of knows what she's doing, or hey, this girl doesn't know how to fix this, but she knows when something's wrong, and that's how I got noticed. I mean, none of my parents didn't ride. Like, I built what I have from nothing. And it was all based on paying attention and knowing the horses that were in front of me.
And of course, with experience comes more experience, and then the dedication, of course, is critically important too, as you say, being passionate about horse care and management. Well, Nicole, it sounds as if you're back not exactly in the tack, but back on the right road now, and getting mobile again. Hopefully, this will be the last of your injuries, at least for some time. We know, being around horses, that this can be, an occupational hazard. But hopefully that you're on the right track now, and you can start to mend and get stronger and be back to doing what you love. So I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story with us.
You're very welcome. I appreciate the invite, and this was great. Thank you so much.
And we'll put a link to Nicole's social media on the show notes accompanying this episode at wispsports.com. Just look for The Horse Show. And whilst you're there, take a look at all the other shows that we have here at Wisp Sports. We cover every sport for women. And with the Olympics, of course, happening right now, there's a lot of sports to cover. And you can also follow us on social media at Wisp Sports, where you can leave your comments, questions, or suggestions. Or you can email us directly, if you prefer, to info@wispsports.com. Especially if you know of any stories that we should be covering here on The Horse Show or any of the other shows. Until the next time, thank you for listening.